Has George Lucas turned to the dark side? Has he actually betrayed the Star Wars fans and the entire Star Wars fandom as we know it? Let's get into it. This is Mike ZEROH. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, as of right now, we do know that Disney and Lucasfilm are quite in a different situation than normal. They really are in a phase of damage control and desperation to really attract a majority of the Star Wars fans that left the franchise. I would say more so with The Last Jedi than The Rise of Skywalker, right? The sequel trilogy movies really were a hit or miss scenario. We had The Force Awakens, which introduced the new characters like Rey, Finn, Poe, Kylo Ren, Snoke, and so on and so forth. And this all concluded recently with The Rise of Skywalker by bringing back Emperor Palpatine into the mix and introducing Luke Skywalker as a Force ghost. Now, when we look at everything related to Disney Star Wars, they have over 10 years worth of Star Wars material to work with on Disney Plus alone. And this is going to consist primarily of new TV shows, whether it's going to be animated or live action form. This is going to be their focus, right? This is going to be their focus of creating a library's worth of Star Wars material. Given that Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and George Lucas are all working together as a team and formed this alliance, if you will, that I like to call LFF or FFL, they're really handling the new expanded universe quite well. The biggest question, though, of recent events that actually occurred, has George Lucas fallen to the dark side? Has he betrayed the Star Wars fans? And I'll give you guys my take on all of this. So, you guys may very well be aware that Kathleen Kennedy is in creative control over two projects now, the Leslie Headland Star Wars TV series and this untitled animated TV show. But why the animated TV show for Disney Plus? Now, with both Disney and Lucasfilm now finished with The Rise of Skywalker, they have been focusing on the new Star Wars trilogy of films, as well as the new Star Wars universe in general. Now, it's noted that they have over 10 years worth of Star Wars projects currently in the works for Disney Plus alone. However, it's described that recently Bob Chaypek came to an agreement with Lucasfilm's Kathleen Kennedy about her involvement with a second Star Wars TV series for Disney Plus, and that it was eventually all up to George Lucas to approve Kathleen Kennedy to take control over this new Star Wars project that will be in animated form for their streaming service. Now, the series is best described to introduce a brand new timeline to the Star Wars fandom, and a timeline that George Lucas has been wanting to explore for the longest time. However, though the complex contract of Kathleen Kennedy is at hand, the only way to make the introduction of this new timeline sooner rather than later would be to allow Kathleen Kennedy to actually have creative control over this new TV series for Disney Plus moving forward that George Lucas approved. Now, the series is actually said to not have any writers or directors attached to it as of yet, and there is a debate on whether or not this decision by Lucas would translate to him as betraying the Star Wars community and the fans in general, given that he gave the project the green light and a major okay for Kathleen Kennedy to actually take control, as long as she is only involved with two projects and two projects only at most. Let me just say one thing here and make it clear about my stance on this. I do not believe that George has fallen to the dark side necessarily or has betrayed the fans. I think that he was thrown into a very complex scenario, a very complex situation where he wanted to really introduce this timeline very, very soon. You know, we do know that George is not going to be around forever. He's not going to be around forever for this new expanded universe. He is essentially going to be sticking around for a number of years to really give it a kickstart, if you will. And he wants to actually give this timeline pretty much the light of day while he's on board. But the only way that they were able to do this was, of course, because Kathleen Kennedy had negotiations with Bob Chapek to introduce this series that would revolve around this new timeline as soon as 2021 or 22, and George was thrown into a scenario where he had to give it the okay. So do I see this as him betraying the Star Wars fans? Honestly, I think that some fans may see it as that, and that's okay. Everybody has their opinion, but I don't really see it like that. I see it as almost similar to a sense where George Lucas believed Kathleen Kennedy many years ago that she was going to take care of these characters, and she didn't, and now he's thrown into a scenario where he wants this actual timeline to be introduced while he's on board. But the only way to do this is because, of course, Kathleen Kennedy has to be the one to introduce it, and that's the only way that it's actually going to be made possible. So, moving on from all of this, This was an order done by George Lucas to actually have Bob Chaypek, of course, for Kennedy to only have 2 more projects to work on. And that would be the end of her legacy of Star Wars, which many fans reject as we know it, where the series is actually said to be a 10-episode series, being 1 hour long each, which they aim to drop sometime in 2022 or 22, like I say, and will be announced later this year in November. It's best described that George was somewhat in a sticky situation that led him to giving the okay for Kennedy to take control over the animated TV series through her complex contract over at Lucasfilm/Disney. So once again, I don't think it was intentional for George to essentially just do this. I think he was thrown into a very complex situation. Kind of like how he was when he wanted Star Wars to continue, but he didn't really want the burden of creating Star Wars movies, so he handed it over to Disney. Somewhat similar like that. Now, of course, you guys may disagree with me on this. Maybe George did betray the fans. I don't think he did. I think that he's going to deliver great experiences, such as, his involvement with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, saving the franchise with every other project in the works. Keep in mind, there are over 10 years worth of Star Wars projects. That's over 10 Star Wars TV shows. We're not counting second seasons here like The Mandalorian and others out there. 10 individual TV shows for starters that George, John, and Dave will be involved in, and there's only 2 that Kathleen Kennedy will actually have creative control over, and that's it. Let's not forget that George actually was the one responsible for only allowing Kathleen Kennedy now to only be in charge of over 2 projects and 2 projects only. No more than that. So, with that being said, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Gun in hand, we are alone again. No, I'm not the one from night to moon.